Hello guys, welcome back to the channel for another cook. Nice to have you. Today we are doing an over the top beef cheek ragu. Now I don't mean over the top as in extravagant or flamboyant. I mean we are getting a Dutch oven in there to make our sauce in, and then we're going to dice up the beef cheeks, set them over the top of the Dutch oven on the cooking grates and let all the juices and fats drip into the sauce just to make it a little bit richer. Then we're going to add the beef cheeks into the ragu, mix it up, and hopefully they'll all be nice and broke down inside that. I'm sure this technique's been about for a while. The first time I came across it was on Elke's channel. I think it was the pork tinga he did, or maybe it was a beef chilli. I'm not sure, it was one of the two. I'll find it and I'll leave the link in the description of the video if you want to check his out. So I thought this would be a good way to do it as well. Rather than cooking the beef cheeks individually and then them juices just dripping into the fire and being done with, might as well make use of them to enrich the sauce a little bit. So I'll adjust the camera a little bit to bring you in and show you our beef cheeks, because unfortunately there is a little bit of work to do with them whenever you get them in their sort of raw form. But I'll bring you in so you have a better view, and I'll explain a little bit more about it. Okay, here are our beef cheeks. This is roughly about 1.5 kilos or 3 beef cheeks or 1.5 cows exactly. As you can see, they're not the most photogenic cuts of meat in the world. So if you think about it, these are probably the hardest worked muscle on the cow. So a cow is all day long, does nothing but eat. So there's loads of fat in through them, and they're quite a tough cut of meat. So we definitely need to cook these slowly to try and render down a lot of that. But as you can see, there's a lot of excess fat on the outside of them. We have this big patch of silver skin here too, which nobody wants to chew on, and you definitely don't want that in the ragu. So we're going to go through and I'm going to trim all these down, remove all this excess fat. There is enough fat inside the actual muscle itself without needing that fat cap over the top. So I'll remove all of this. Anything that's sort of flopping off like this definitely is not needed. So we'll cut as much of that out as possible, and then we're going to cut it up into chunks, sort of 2-inch chunks, which we can then set over the top of the Dutch oven and cook them down slowly into the sauce. Okay, so our beef cheeks are ready. I've trimmed all the fat and silver skin off them. We've diced them up. We're going to make a start on the sauce. So I have my Dutch oven sitting on the accessory rack of the Kamado Joe. Just going to stick a little bit of oil in there. We're going to go in with our veg. So we have a couple of carrots, a couple of celery sticks and an onion. We'll add that in. Give it a toss around to coat them in the oil. We'll let them soften down a little bit first before we add everything else. Once our veg has had a few minutes to start softening down, we're going to go in with the next ingredient, which is we have 1 red chilli, which is finely chopped, about 2 cloves of garlic, and then roughly about a thumb of ginger, which has just been grated down. So add that in and give it a mix through. We'll close our lid down, mostly to stop those coals firing up too much. Again, we're going low and slow in this, so we don't want a massive fire underneath it. So bottom vent has been shut off completely, and we're going to keep the lid down as much as we can while we're making the sauce. Okay then, next up, we'll go in with about a tablespoon of tomato puree. And a full can of chopped tomatoes. Then we can go in with our liquids. So we have 500 ml of beef stock and 500 ml of red wine. Give it all a quick mix around. Again, this is wet, but this is going to simmer down over time while we're smoking the beef cheeks. We may need to add a little bit more liquid to it later on if it does thicken up too much. Once all those beef drippings get in there, it's really going to add a lot of flavour to the sauce. And finally, we'll chuck in a couple of sprigs of fresh thyme and a bay leaf. Just plop those down inside. And that's it. We're going to let that come up to a simmer again while we get the seasoning onto the beef cheeks. Now, one issue I have found, and this is where the classic 3 might come in handy, the Dutch oven doesn't quite fit on the accessory rack underneath the grates. So we're going to have to make do. We're just going to place the grates on top. Same outcome, just a bit of a workaround, but I'm happy enough with it. So we'll close that down, let that sauce come back up and get our temperature stabilised again, and we'll go and look at the beef cheeks. Alright, so while the sauce is coming up to a simmer, then we can talk about our beef cheeks again. We have trimmed them down as best we can to get rid of most of that silver skin and any fat and gristle that's on them. There are pieces like this that will have a membrane running through them. You could spend all day hacking away at them to try and get rid of it, and you're just going to end up wasting more meat. So after they've been trimmed down and we've removed as much of that as possible, we're left with around 1 kilo of meat. So we've trimmed away maybe 400 or 500 grams worth of stuff from them. So this is what we're going with. Once they get in and braised down, if we can fish any of that kind of stuff out of the sauce, we will. Seasoning them up today with the Texas steak rub from Angus Oink. Really, it's a sort of salt, pepper, garlic rub, but there's a few different types of salt and pepper and stuff in there, so really nice one to go on these traditional Texas flavors. So we'll spread our chunks out on the board here. We'll just season all over. Flip everything over. Again, we're going for roughly 2-inch chunks, a couple of smaller bits in there, but once it all gets chucked into the liquid, then it should be fine. It'll braise down on its own. And we'll go on the other side. Give them all a smash about the board to try and gather up any excess rub. Don't want to be losing it, it might as well be on the meat when it goes on to smoke. I say smoke, really this is just low and slow. We're not actually adding any smoke flavour to it. I want just the normal flavours off the lumpwood charcoal. So I'm not adding any smoke down in there. It's all just going to come from the lumpwood. So those are all well enough seasoned. We're going to get them onto the barbecue now. We're going to smoke them for a couple of hours and then we're going to add them into the sauce. At that point we might ramp the temperature slightly. Again, at the minute we're sitting pretty steady around 130 or so. So I'm happy enough to put these on for a couple of hours just to take on a bit of flavour from the lumpwood. Then they go into the sauce. Our beef cheeks have been on for a couple of hours, just taking on a little bit of that charcoal smoke. Our sauce, as you can see, has thickened up quite a lot. This is probably the sort of final consistency we would want it. However, we're not finished yet. We still have to braise the beef cheeks a little bit, so I'm going to add in another 300 or 400 mils of beef stock. Mix that in through, because we need some kind of liquid in there to braise down the beef cheeks. Beef cheeks are still hard, they haven't softened down just yet. They're still sitting around the 60s temperature wise. So we're going to add them in here. Back in with our little nuggets. Just mix them down into that sauce. We're going to close the lid down. We're going to keep the temperature relatively low. We're going to bring this to a simmer again. We've been sitting around 120, 130 the whole time. We can go up 140, 150 now, so we want it at a gentle simmer just to start braising these down. We'll keep an eye to see if the sauce is thickening down too much as well. Might need to add a little bit more in there, but we're going to go until the beef cheeks are tender and falling apart. Okay, our ragu has been bubbling away for roughly another about 2.5 hours. So we're up to just under 4 hours total, or just under 5 hours total, sorry. And the sauce is thickened up quite nicely. I did have to add another probably a couple of 100 mils of water. Just the beef cheeks weren't quite at the point yet where they would mash down. But you can see now, if you go in, a lot of it is already broke down, but if you find a little chunk here and there, just rub it with the back of your spoon, it falls apart. So everything is softened down nicely. This is probably the consistency I want the sauce. I don't want to boil it down too much more, or it's going to end up too thick, so it's still quite a nice consistency. Rich, smells amazing. Those beef cheeks are going to have added loads of flavour in there. So it is time to get it off. As you might be able to tell, I've lost the light. These dark nights are a pain in the ass for shooting videos with, but good things come to those who wait, and this looks like it's going to be a good thing. Let's get a little bit plated up and we'll try it out. There's only one thing left to do, and that is dive in and give it a try. Nice little chunk of beef cheek to get me started. Oh, that is a rich sauce. You can really serve it up with any kind of pasta. I've just got spaghetti here, but I've added a few dollops of pesto in there as well. Oh, it smells so good. Even for no smoke being in there, you can really smell it and taste it off the sauce. I guess that's just the natural lumpwood charcoal adding the flavour in there. And there is a kick of heat. There's a whole red chilli in there, but they're relatively mild chilies, so again, just tailor that to your liking. If you don't like heat, then maybe drop it down, just add half a chilli, no chilli, whatever you fancy. Now, it did get away from me a little bit. I was kind of expecting about 2 hours with the beef cheeks over the top of the Dutch oven, and then around 2 hours in the Dutch oven. In reality, we were probably closer to 3 hours in the Dutch oven, hence the reason why there's no light anymore. But it was 100% worth the wait. Beef cheeks are such a funny thing, you know. I would say about 20 minutes before I brought it off, the beef cheeks felt like they weren't going to fall apart, and they're the kind of thing you just have to stick with them and let them go. You could very well say, oh, it's fine, it'll do right now. but at some point they will just let go and they will suddenly start to fall apart. So stick with it, do not give in, because they will pay off in the end. So I'm going to go and enjoy this late dinner. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.